Ancient Egypt was a civilization that believed time itself could be defeated, a land where life was carefully prepared not for the present moment, but for eternity, and where kings were not simply rulers, but divine beings responsible for maintaining balance between the world of humans and the world of gods. Wide cinematic view of ancient Egypt along the Nile at sunrise. 4,000s of years. Egyptians built temples, tombs, and monuments with the belief that memory was a form of immortality, and that to be remembered was to live forever. Yet among all the pharaohs who ruled this ancient land, only one name would come to define Egypt in the modern imagination: a king who ruled briefly, achieved little by traditional standards, and was forgotten almost completely until history itself chose to remember him. And that name was Tutankhamun. Tutankhamun Golden Mask close-up. Tutankhamun was born around 1341 BC during one of the most unstable and dangerous periods Egypt had ever experienced, a time when political authority, religious belief, and social order were collapsing from within, leaving the empire vulnerable and divided. And this chaos began with the reign of a single man, his father, most likely Akhenaten, a pharaoh who dared to challenge traditions that had stood unbroken for thousands of years, believing that Egypt's many gods were false and that only one divine force deserved worship, the Aten, symbolized by the sun disk shining over all creation. Akhenaten worshipping the Aten by forcing this new religion onto the people. Akhenaten closed ancient temples, removed the power of the priests, and dismantled a system that connected faith, economy, and government into one unified structure, causing widespread resentment and fear among the population. While foreign powers noticed Egypt's growing weakness and began to test its borders, and it was into this fragile and uncertain world that a child named Tutankhaten was born, his name meaning living image of the Aten, marking him from birth as a symbol of his father's controversial revolution, even though he would one day be forced to undo it. When Akhenaten died under mysterious circumstances, his vision collapsed almost overnight. The old gods returned, the priests reclaimed their influence, and Egypt urgently needed stability, order, and a ruler who could heal the wounds left behind. And so at only 9 years old, Tutankhaten was placed on the throne, a child wearing the crown of gods, while the true power of the kingdom rested in the hands of older men who ruled in his name, most notably I, the royal advisor, and Horemheb, the military commander, whose priority was not the boy himself, but the survival of the state. And one of the most important symbolic acts of this restoration was the changing of the young king's name from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun, meaning living image of Ammonius, publicly announcing Egypt's return to its traditional gods and signaling the rejection of Akhenaten's heresy. Name carved in stone. Temples were reopened, religious rituals were restored, and the capital was moved away from Akhenaten's abandoned city of Amarna, giving the appearance that Egypt had returned to normal, yet behind the walls of the palace, Tutankhamun lived a life marked by physical weakness and constant struggle, as modern scientific studies of his mummy reveal that he suffered from multiple health problems, including a deformed foot, fragile bones, and genetic conditions likely caused by generations of royal inbreeding, conditions that made everyday movement painful and exhausting, forcing the young king to rely on walking canes, over 100 of which were discovered in his tomb. Silent evidence of a body that failed him even as he carried the weight of a kingdom. Despite this fragile state, Tutankhamun was married at a young age to Akhenaten, his half-sister and the daughter of Akhenaten and the famous Queen Nefertiti. A marriage meant to preserve the royal bloodline and reinforce political legitimacy rather than personal choice, and while ancient art often depicts the couple with affection and intimacy, their real life was marked by sorrow. As evidence suggests, Akhenaten suffered repeated miscarriages, with 2 mummified infant daughters found buried alongside Tutankhamun, hinting at personal grief hidden behind royal ceremony/symbolic depiction of mourning. Tutankhamun ruled Egypt for approximately 9 years, And during that time, he did not lead great military campaigns or commission massive monuments, instead focusing on repairing what had been broken, restoring religious balance, and stabilizing the kingdom after years of internal conflict. And then, as suddenly as his reign had begun, it ended when Tutankhamun died around the age of 18 or 19 under circumstances that remain uncertain to this day, with modern research suggesting a combination of illness, infection from a broken leg, and malaria rather than murder, though the mystery of his death continues to fascinate historians and scientists alike. Mysterious shadowed scene of the young king. His burial was rushed, likely due to his unexpected death, and he was placed in a relatively small tomb in the Valley of the Kings, possibly one not originally intended for a pharaoh, and after the funeral rituals were completed, Tutankhamun faded from memory. His name omitted from official king lists, his tomb hidden beneath layers of debris, and his existence lost to the world for more than 3,000 years, until in 1922. British archaeologist Howard Carter uncovered a sealed doorway in the Valley of the Kings that led to one of the most extraordinary discoveries in human history. Howard Carter, discovering the tomb. Inside were treasures beyond imagination. Chariots, statues, jewelry, golden shrines, and everyday objects frozen in time, all preserved because grave robbers had never fully reached the burial chamber. And at the heart of it all lay the object that would become the symbol of ancient Egypt itself, the golden funerary mask of Tutankhamun. Golden mask reveal. The discovery stunned the world, ignited a global fascination with ancient Egypt, and inspired myths of a deadly curse that supposedly followed those who entered the tomb, though in reality there was no curse, only coincidence, media sensationalism, and humanity's deep fear of disturbing the dead. And today Tutankhamun stands as one of history's greatest contradictions, a king who ruled briefly, achieved little in life, yet became immortal through chance, preservation, and mystery, proving that legacy is not always created by power or conquest, but sometimes by silence, obscurity, and time itself.